Never did I imagine I would become the sort of woman who could be caught off guard by her own longings. I had always seen myself as a devoted partner, a nurturing parent, someone reliable in making the right decisions regardless of the challenges faced. Yet, existence possesses a remarkable talent for bringing you down to earth, revealing the depths of your own ignorance regarding your true self. This is a tale of how I turned my back on my husband, my family, and all the values I believed I held dear. It's a tale woven with threads of passion, desire, and the perilous mingling of limits. And it all began with a glimpse of something I was never meant to witness. Once upon a time, there was a woman named Claire. Throughout her journey, she was often seen as a beacon of reliability, the kind of person others could always count on. Once upon a time, I found myself in a career that filled me with pride, nestled in a home that brought me joy, and bound in a marriage that, though not without its flaws, felt steadfast and lasting. My husband Mark was the steadfast foundation upon which I built my life. For 2 decades, we had woven our lives together in the tapestry of marriage. Even as the vibrant flame of our beginnings settled into a cozy rhythm, my faith in his love and loyalty remained unwavering. He was the sort of man who cherished anniversaries, who clasped my hand during films, and who consistently enveloped me in a sense of security. Or so I believed. And so we come to our son, Jake. He was not born of our blood. We welcomed him into our lives when he was 16. After a long journey filled with the challenges of infertility, Jake had wandered through the halls of foster homes for much of his life. And when he arrived at our doorstep, he carried with him a silence that spoke volumes. He was reserved, a soul marked by the turbulence of his past, bearing the weight of scars that told stories of the instability he had faced. Mark and I envisioned a world where he could finally find the stability and love that had eluded him for so long, and for a time, it felt as though we were weaving that dream into reality. Jake had blossomed into a self-assured and compassionate young man, and my heart swelled with pride for the individual he was evolving into. As the years unfolded, a disquieting realization began to take shape. Jake held a bond with us that went beyond mere attachment. He felt a deep connection to me. He trailed behind me in the house, a silent companion. Captivated by each word that fell from my lips, he would settle beside me on the couch, our legs gently touching, and a peculiar flutter would rise in my chest, an emotion I couldn't fully grasp. I convinced myself it was just a fleeting moment. He was merely a boy who had never known a mother's love, and I was the nearest thing he had ever experienced to one. Yet, beneath the surface, I sensed there was a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. There were moments when his gaze would linger on me, filled with unspoken tales. It was not the gaze a son ought to cast upon his mother. In his eyes, a deep hunger flickered, a yearning that coiled within me, twisting my stomach with guilt and an unnamed sensation that lingered just out of reach. Mark observed it as well, yet he kept his thoughts to himself. He would cast me these sly, sideways glances whenever Jake was in the vicinity, his jaw clenched, a silent storm of frustration brewing beneath the surface. It was clear he felt uneasy, yet he struggled to find the right words to express it without causing Jake any pain. We wore our masks, feigning normalcy, while the atmosphere in our home thickened with unspoken words and mounting unease. Then arrived the night that transformed everything. On a balmy summer evening, Mark found himself toiling away long after the sun had dipped below the horizon. After dinner, Jake retreated to his room while I remained in the kitchen, tidying up the remnants of our meal. The house sat in silence, a stillness that wrapped around it like a thick blanket, heavy and suffocating. After completing the dishes, I felt a pull to see how Jake was doing before I settled in for the night. The door stood ever so slightly ajar, inviting curiosity and whispers of what lay beyond. As I stood there, a delicate melody drifted through the air, beckoning me from within. I tapped gently, yet silence lingered in the air. With a sense of curiosity, I gently nudged the door open a bit wider and took a cautious glance inside, wondering if he had drifted off to sleep. What unfolded before my eyes left me breathless. Jake sat on his bed, his back turned to the door, blissfully unaware of my presence. His shirt lay discarded and his jeans hung loosely unbuttoned. His hand danced in a steady rhythm beneath the waistband. My breath hitched in my throat, and a wave of emotions washed over me: embarrassment, and an elusive feeling I struggled to identify. I ought to have walked away, to have shut the door and feigned ignorance, as if I had never laid eyes on it at all. Yet I chose not to. I stood there, a statue of stillness, my eyes locked onto Jake as his actions grew increasingly frantic, a palpable sense of urgency enveloping him. And then, as if he could feel my gaze, he spun around. Our gazes locked, and for a fleeting instant, time stood still as neither of us dared to break the silence. With a rush of crimson creeping across his cheeks, Jake swiftly retracted his hand, his fingers clumsily grappling to fasten his jeans. A wave of guilt and shame washed over me. Yet beneath it all, there lingered an unusual electric thrill that sent my stomach into a whirlwind of knots. Claire, Jake said, his voice quivering with emotion. Oh, I had no idea you were present. Words eluded me in that moment. Thoughts swirled like a tempest, and my heart thudded fiercely within my chest. I ought to have expressed my regrets, ought to have urged him to let go of the past events. Yet I found myself rooted to the spot, gazing at him, my body revealing truths I was reluctant to acknowledge, and then, in a moment of impulse, I crossed the threshold into the room and gently shut the door behind me. The instant I shut the door behind me, a realization washed over me. There was no way to return. The atmosphere in Jake's room was thick with anticipation, a palpable energy that seemed to pulse through the very walls. As if they were waiting for something to unfold, Jake lingered on the bed, his face a canvas of flushed hues, eyes wide, caught in a dance of shock and an elusive emotion that sent a twist through my stomach. Impossible to overlook. Claire, he murmured once more, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper. I apologize. It was never my intention for you to catch a glimpse of that. Initially, I remained silent, thoughts swirled in my mind, and my heart thumped with such intensity that I felt certain he could sense its rhythm. I ought to have pivoted and made my exit. I ought to have expressed my regrets and urged him to let go of the past events, yet I chose not to. Instead, I drew nearer, my gaze fixed on his. It's all right, I whispered, my voice quivering. No need for apologies. Jake's eyes grew wide, and in that fleeting instant, he resembled a frightened child, exposed, uncertain, and yearning for comfort. But then, a change flickered across his face, something shadowy and insatiable, and he rose, narrowing the space that lay between us. Claire, he murmured, his voice soft and uncertain. In the midst of uncertainty, my thoughts are consumed by you, an unshakable presence in my mind. His words danced through the air, sending a shiver down my spine, igniting a whirlwind of emotions within me. Regret, embarrassment, and an unwelcome feeling that lingered. To name, I was acutely aware of the wrongness of this moment, the unmistakable line that I should never dare to cross, yet the intensity of his gaze, the proximity of his form to mine, clouded my thoughts and left me in a haze of confusion. Jake, I said, my voice softly drifting like a gentle breeze. This is not something we can accomplish. It's not right. He shook his head, his eyes brimming with a blend of desperation and longing. Though I understand the moral implications, my emotions are beyond my control. In all my days, it's you, Claire, who has shown me true care and concern. You are the sole person who has ever made me feel significant. His words pierced me deeply, igniting a tumult of guilt and shame within my soul. I felt the urge to distance myself, to utter the words that this could never be a reality. Yet the reality was, I had no desire to. The reality was, I desired him just as fiercely as he desired me. And then, just as I was about to intervene, I extended my hand, gently brushing my fingers along the contour of his jaw. Feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my touch, Jake's breath caught in his throat, and for a fleeting moment, he remained frozen, his gaze firmly anchored to mine. Then, with a gentle approach, he leaned in and pressed his lips against mine. It was not a pure kiss, the sort a son might bestow upon his matriarch. It was a creature of hunger, a being steeped in desperation, brimming with the weight of all the longing and pain he had harbored within, for what felt like an eternity. And with a heart full of emotion, I kissed him back. For a fleeting instant, I lost sight of the fact that he was my son, lost track of the reality that he was married, yet all that lingered in his mind was the memory of his lips pressed against mine. As he finally drew back, we found ourselves gasping for air, our cheeks warm with a mix of embarrassment and longing. I wished to convey a message, to express that such a thing could never occur again. Yet the words remained trapped within my throat. In that moment, I spun around and dashed to my sanctuary, securing the door with a firm click behind me. As the night stretched on, I found myself lying in bed, gazing up at the ceiling, wrestling with the notion that perhaps it had all been a misstep, a fleeting lapse in strength that I could eventually leave in the shadows of my mind. Yet, beneath the surface, I was aware of the reality. That kiss stirred a deep, shadowy force within me, something perilous and alluring that I could no longer overlook. As much as I wished to weave a tale where it never occurred, deep down, I understood it was merely the prologue to something greater. The days that unfolded after that initial kiss were shrouded in a fog of guilt and uncertainty. I steered clear of Jake whenever possible, immersing myself in work and household tasks to keep my thoughts at bay. Yet, regardless of my busyness, thoughts of him lingered in my mind, refusing to fade away. The recollection of his lips against mine danced through my thoughts, an unending echo of what I had experienced. completed, and what I still yearned to pursue. Jake, in his own way, appeared equally torn. He maintained his distance, yet I could sense his gaze upon me whenever we shared the same space. A tension hung between us, a charged energy that thickened the air, making it feel heavy and oppressive. Mark, with his keen eye, certainly took note of it. He was not blind. Yet, he remained silent, and I found myself too timid to broach the subject. On a fateful night, all things converged to a climax. Mark had ventured out of town for a work conference, leaving me at home with Jake. All day, we danced around one another, each step careful, neither daring to confront the unspoken truth that loomed between us. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the air thickened with an intensity that was almost palpable. With a sense of anticipation, I chose to pour myself a glass of wine, believing it might ease my tension and bring a moment of tranquility. As I lounged on the couch, my gaze lost in the flickering glow of the TV, Jake strolled into the room. He did not whisper your thoughts in the beginning. He simply remained there, observing me with those striking blue eyes of his. At last, he uttered a few words, his voice soft and uncertain. "Claire," he uttered, and the mere sound of my name escaping his lips sent a delightful shiver coursing down my spine. "It's time for a conversation." I lifted my glass, allowing the rich liquid to touch my lips, seeking solace in its warmth as I steadied my racing heart. "What is it about?" He moved in, his hands buried deep within his pockets. "Have you ever thought about this?" I was aware, yet I wasn't prepared to confront it. "Jake, this isn't a good idea," I said, my voice quivering with uncertainty. "What transpired the other night, once upon an error, we must ensure it never occurs once more." He shook his head, a look of anguish crossing his face. "It was not a mistake. But you see, it truly wasn't. For a long time, Claire, this feeling has lingered within me. I found myself at a loss for words when it came to sharing this with you." I gazed at him, my heart racing within my chest. "Jake, you are my child. This is not right. I'm not your son," he declared, his voice climbing in intensity. "I am not of your lineage. You didn't bring me up. We're not truly connected. Not in the way that matters." His words struck me with the force of a sudden blow, leaving me breathless. I felt the urge to contest his words, to assert that he was mistaken. Yet within the depths of my mind, I recognized the validity of his perspective. Jake was not my biological child. He was a teenager we had welcomed into our home, a boy who had woven himself into the fabric of our lives through the twists of fate, rather than by blood. Yet that did not diminish the wrongness of our actions. "Jake," I pleaded, my voice trembling with emotion, "this is not something we can accomplish. It's not just..." He moved nearer, his gaze aflame with fervor. "It matters not to me whether it is deemed right or wrong. My heart is yours, Claire, and I believe you hold feelings for me as well." As I prepared to voice my dissent, silence enveloped me, and the words eluded my grasp. For the reality was that he held the truth. I truly cherished him, not as a mother cherishes her son, but as a woman adores a man. And that realization filled me with dread. Just as I was about to intervene, Jake bridged the gap between us and pressed his lips against mine once more. This time, I embraced the moment. I pressed my lips against his, my fingers weaving through his hair. As the wine glass slipped from my grasp and shattered on the floor. At that instant, everything else faded away. Neither the union, nor the principles, nor the existence I had tirelessly crafted. What truly held significance was Jake and the emotions he stirred within me. Our embrace deepened beyond mere kisses. One event gracefully unfolded into the next. And just like that, we found ourselves in my bedroom, our clothes strewn about upon the ground. It was misguided, so misguided, yet I found myself utterly indifferent. After a long stretch of time, a spark ignited within me, awakening feelings of vitality and longing. Yearned for in a manner that Mark hadn't evoked in me for ages. In the quiet aftermath, we found ourselves entwined in the soft embrace of the sheets, our bodies a harmonious blend of warmth and comfort. With Jake's head nestled against my chest, his fingers danced in gentle, meandering patterns across my skin. I ought to have been burdened by guilt, weighed down by shame. Yet, all that enveloped me was an unusual tranquility. "This doesn't change anything," I declared, seeking to reassure myself more than him. "This must not occur once more." Jake raised his gaze to meet mine. His gaze was deep and solemn. "It has already unfolded, Claire, and you can feel it in your bones. This journey is far from over." I felt the urge to contest his words, to assert that he was mistaken. Yet I found myself unable to do so. For within me, I understood he spoke the truth. This was not merely a fleeting error. A new chapter was unfolding, hinting at a grander tale yet to be told. A moment that would alter the course of our lives for eternity. The days that came after that fateful night were filled with a tempest of hidden truths and heavy hearts. As the sun cast its golden rays, Jake and I danced around one another, our movements careful and deliberate, like characters in a tale unfolding with each passing moment. Be cautious not to arouse any suspicion in Mark. Yet, as the night draped its velvet cloak over the quiet house and Mark surrendered to slumber, we succumbed to our deepest yearnings. It was a misstep, I recognized that truth, yet I found myself unable to resist the pull. Jake had woven himself into the fabric of obsession, a substance that held me captive, no matter the effort I exerted to break free. Mark, naturally, found himself utterly bewildered by the unfolding events. He remained unaware of the unease that lingered in the air of the home. So engrossed in his tasks, he failed to see the silent exchange between Jake and me. Those fleeting glances we shared when we believed ourselves unseen. Yet, I could sense the fissures beginning to emerge in our union. Mark and I had always shared a bond, yet now an invisible chasm lay between us. One that felt insurmountable. I reassured myself that it was merely a fleeting moment in time. That life would return to its usual rhythm once Jake stepped out of the house, yet, within the depths of my being, I was aware that was a fabrication. Then, on a fateful evening, the world as we knew it transformed completely. Mark returned home sooner than usual from work, his complexion ghostly and weary. He had been carrying a heavy burden lately, and the weight was beginning to reveal itself. As I busied myself in the kitchen, crafting a meal, he entered the room and took a seat at the table. "We must converse," he uttered, his tone laden with weariness. I stood still, my heart racing within my chest. Had he uncovered the secret of Jake and me? Could this be the moment when everything came tumbling down? "Beneath what seems to be the trouble?" I inquired, striving to maintain a calm tone. Mark let out a weary sigh, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Allow me to introduce myself. I am Jake." I sense he may be facing some difficulties. A wave of relief washed over me, only to be swiftly followed by a shadow of guilt. "What do you mean by that?" "Today, Mark shared that he received a call from his school. Whispers filled the air about his rebellious way, skipping classes, getting into brawls, and stirring up trouble. Concerns linger in the air regarding his well-being." I furrowed my brow, thoughts swirling in a tempest within me. Jake had always excelled in his studies, calm and composed. This was entirely uncharacteristic of him. "Did they share the reason?" inquired. Mark gave a slow, deliberate shake of his head. "Indeed, I believe it is intricately tied to his history. It's been quite a journey for him, shifting from one foster home to the next. Perhaps he is merely finding his way through the challenges of adaptation." I nodded, yet an unsettling sense lingered within me, suggesting that there was a deeper layer to unravel. Once upon a time, there was a character named Jake who had been behaving oddly of late, yet I had thought it was merely a consequence of our secret connection. Is there perhaps another layer to this tale? As the moon cast its gentle glow, and Mark surrendered to slumber, I quietly made my way to Jake's room. He sat on the bed, gazing at the wall, his face a canvas of emptiness. I settled beside him, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "Jake, what tale unfolds before us?" inquired softly. "Your father shared with me tales of the school. What's causing you to behave this way?" At first, he remained silent. Then, with a deliberate grace, he shifted his gaze to meet mine. His eyes brimmed with a tumultuous blend of fury and sorrow. "I can't do this anymore," he said, his voice quivering with emotion. "I can no longer wear the mask of normalcy when the truth is far from it." My heart plummeted. "What do you mean by that?" He rose to his feet and started to wander around the room, his thoughts weaving through the air like a delicate thread. His hands formed tight fists. "Well, this is really pulling me in different directions, Claire. My heart is drawn to you. Yet I find myself trapped in this web of secrecy, hiding my truth from Mark. It feels unjust for him, and it feels unjust for me." A lump began to form in my throat. "Jake, No," he cut in, his voice escalating. "You don't have the right to speak anything. You were the catalyst for all of this. It was you who pressed your lips to mine under the stars that night. And now I find myself lost in thoughts of you, of what we share. Yet, Claire, this is not right. It feels profoundly unjust." Emotion welled up within me as the weight of his words sank in. I had begun this journey. I had ventured into a realm that was never meant to be traversed. And now, Jake found himself facing the consequences. "Forgive me," I murmured, my voice trembling. "My intentions were never to cause you pain." Jake paused in his restless movements and turned to me, a gentle warmth spreading across his face. "Though you may not acknowledge it, the reality remains that you did indeed take that action. And now I find myself at a crossroads, uncertain of what steps to take next." "Take action." I extended my hand and grasped his firmly, holding on with a sense of urgency. "We'll unravel this together, Jake." In unison, I vow. Yet, as the words slipped from my lips, a deep understanding settled within me. They were hollow. In this tangled web, no simple escape awaited. There was no turning back from the harm we had caused. As deeply as I yearned to believe that we could uncover a path to mend what was broken, I found myself unable to dispel the sense that we were on a path toward calamity. The days that followed Jake's confession unfolded like a haunting tale, steeped in pain and regret. Mark departed from the house, unable to endure the presence of either me or Jake. He initiated the divorce, and the process unfolded with a rapid intensity that was nothing short of ruthless. He chose not to battle me over the house or the money. He sought to cast me aside, and I found no fault in his desire. The final decree arrived on a chilly, overcast morning, and I found myself seated on the floor of our vacant. In the living room, I found myself gazing at the papers clutched in my hands, a heavy weight settling in my chest as if the very essence of my life had come to a standstill. Jake, in the midst of his journey, was grappling with the challenge of finding his footing. He left school behind and found work at a nearby grocery store. The shop, yet it was evident he was merely going through the motions. He hardly uttered a word to me, and when he did, it was only to unleash his anger, to cast the blame upon me for all that went wrong. That had taken an unexpected turn. "You have shattered my existence," he declared under the cloak of night. His voice quivered, a storm of fury brewing within. Once, I stood on the brink of a life filled with warmth, a family to call my own. And then it was all snatched away from me. I felt the urge to express that he had a role in this as well. Yet deep down, I understood it would be futile. The reality was, I had shattered his existence. I had taken a vulnerable young man and woven our relationship into something shadowy and devastating, and now we found ourselves both bearing the consequences. One evening, while I was sifting through the dusty corners of the attic, I stumbled upon a box filled with old photographs. In those cherished moments, captured in photographs, were Mark and I. Reflecting the early days of our union, we appeared vibrant, filled with joy, and utterly enchanted by each other. As I settled onto the floor, I found myself sifting through the photographs, tears cascading down my cheeks, each image stirring memories of the life we once shared. And then, at the bottom of the box, a letter awaited discovery. It came from Mark, penned shortly after our wedding day. In it, he expressed his deep affection for me, shared his enthusiasm for embarking on our journey together, and conveyed his eagerness to share a lifetime of memories as we grew old side by side. I pored over the words repeatedly, each sentence shattering my heart a little more. "Claire," he had penned, "you are the very essence of my being. Life without you is a tale I cannot fathom. I vow to hold you dear, to treasure you, to remain true to you for all my days to come." A wave of fury washed over me, ignited by his words, by the vows he had uttered and then shattered. Yet, beyond that, a profound and lingering sorrow enveloped me. There lingers a profound sorrow for the life that slipped through our fingers, for the love that crumbled into dust, for the echoes of the people we once were. I found myself at a crossroads, uncertain of how to handle the letter, the memories it carried, and the weight of the pain that lingered. Thus, I carefully returned everything to the box and tucked it away into the shadowy corner of the attic, a place where it would remain out of sight. Yet, I understood it would forever remain, a whisper of what had slipped through my fingers, of the paths I had chosen, of the existence I once embraced.